Hello, my name is Elise, or Caffeine and Misery, and today I'm going to be talking about one of the decks that got the, as of time of recording, brand new release, DZ-BT-08, Knights of Rebirth. And of course, I'm going to be talking about the cover of the deck, finally. The upgrade to the Faded 1/0 Blangdmire Nexus. But let's go ahead, go real fast into the deck profile. I'll talk about what I like, what I don't like about the deck. But let's get started. For the ride line, I am just on the regular Blangdmire ride line. The 1 and 2 have the exact same skill. When you ride up into the next card in the ride line, you get to reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, put all grade 1 or greater cards revealed into the soul, then bottom deck all of the remaining cards. If you put at least 2 cards, you draw a card for both. Very simple ability. It helps you build up soul really fast, and you're getting a little bit of card advantage as long as you're hitting 2 targets. And why do you need soul? Why do you need so much soul, besides the fact you're a Dark States deck? Well, it is because of the on-attack ability of our Faded 1/0 Blangdmire. When he attacks a Vanguard by binding at least 2 cards from soul up to 4 face down, you can draw a card, and if you bound 4 cards, you get to give your Vanguard 5k for every 2 bound cards until the end of the battle, and your opponent has to bind 2 of their rear guards. So, it's a great way to close the board a little bit and get a good amount of power. And of course, it's also part of setting up the condition for the Divine skill, which at the beginning of the guard step that he attacks, as long as the bind zone has 8 or more face down cards, you can have Blangdmire get a critical end of turn, and if you do, your opponent cannot call or play Sentinels until the end of the turn, not just his swing, end of turn. So if they still guard this, you hit some criticals, they'll stop some trouble. And you choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and you remove all of their abilities and the opponent's abilities. If you have seen the anime, this is how Blangdmire is able to get rid of Raziel's Divine skill, get rid of Raziel's Miracle. But it also wipes out Triple Drive if they don't draw into a Persona Ride, but they have Gradius Gradil. I do believe it wipes out, I could be wrong about that, but I believe it wipes out all skill icons and all abilities of the card. But going into the main deck, I am of course on 4 copies of the new upgrade, the One Who Walks from Zero, Blangdmire Nexus, who on the Vanguard Circle is treated as a Faded 1/0 Blangdmire, and during your turn, as long as you have a card of the same name as this guy in the soul, so either a Persona Ride or the original, well, it gets the Divine skill of all Blangdmires in the soul and gives all of your rear guards 5k. Or all your front rear guards. On that, it has an axe skill instead of an on-attack auto that can also be paid with binding a grade 3 or greater Blangdmire from soul face down. By binding 4 cards face down from soul, so you have to have the number, you have to have that 4. Or your opponent does the same thing of choosing 2 of their rear guards to retire or to bind face down, and Blangdmire still gets 5k for every 2 face down bound cards you have, but you also get to afterwards go through your face down bound, pick a card. If it's a grade 3 or lower unit, you can call it. If you don't call, you draw a card. Very nice, simple effect. Good way to rebuild a board if you get wiped. It's a good way to make sure you have pieces that you can use to be attacking. On that, for the grade 3 slot though, I'm on 4 copies of Single Strike Shatter Colossus, who when he attacks a Vanguard, as long as you have 4 more face down cards and bind, he can get 10k until end of turn or end of battle, and at the end of the battle he goes to soul. And when he's pushed to soul by a card ability, as long as you have a grade 3 or greater Blangdmire, you can bind it face down to draw a card. So he lets you build up your bind zone a lot faster. He lets you ramp it pretty good. It's really nice if you can somehow cycle through just putting him into soul before or Blangdmire's first swing, because his Divine skill technically doesn't actually have a restriction on grade, so if you manage to do it, you got a pretty big tempo advantage there. But going into the grade 2s, obviously we're still on 4 copies of the original triple rare support, the Steam Raider Zamoog, who when placed on rear, as long as you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, for a single counterblast you get to check the top 3 cards of the deck and put any number into soul, then shuffle. And as long as you put at least 1 card, you get to draw a card. So this is the main way you're going to be shuffling your deck after you check for the ride line. And he still gives a draw. He's essentially a better version of the ride line for a counterblast. Along with that, he has an on swing that when he attacks, as long as you have a grade 3 or greater Blangdmire, and he only has a single crit, you can EB3 to give it 5k and an extra crit for the end till the end of the battle. So he's going to be your main beater. He's the one who's punching. Along with that, I'm on the second set of triple rare support, the Vaderok Dragon, who, as long as he's placed during any time that isn't the battle phase, you get to soul charge 1. Then counterblast 1, you get to pick a grade 2 or lower from soul and call it, as long as it's not another Vaderok. But if you don't have a Blangdmire Vanguard, it goes back to soul at the end of the turn. So, you know, it lets you pull out a guy, get some early rush if you play an early game without risking losing any pieces. Along with that, during your turn, it gets 10k for every 4 face-down cards in bind. So again, you're going to try and be getting your face-down bind up to that 8 threshold as fast as possible to make him really big, and to specifically make him a really big booster, because to round out the grade 2 slots of the deck, we're on the boost order package. 3 copies of Sagacious Schemer, who on place, for a single Soul Blast, you get to search your deck for a Game of Underworld, put into the order zone, and shuffle. And when he's chosen by Game of Underworld, he gets 5k, so he becomes a 15k booster. What Game of Underworld does is very simple. At the beginning of battle phase, you choose a back row rear guard, and it gets boost. And I'm on 3 and 2. You only really need to be getting 1 into the order zone. If you get both, that's really nice. You can just play it for free if you draw into it, so it's not really a big loss. You're not running any other orders in this build. We will be getting into some of that a little bit later. For the grade 1s, I'm on the other triple rare for the deck that came out with Nexus, the Elaborate Wizard, who on place from hand, you get to check the top 2 cards of the deck, put 1 to soul, the other goes to bottom of the deck, and at the end of the battle of boost, as long as you have a grade 3 or greater Blangdmire, you can counterblast 1, you get to take a normal unit back from soul, perfect card you put in, and Nexus you put in, and so you have the Persona Ride, maybe a Zamug if you somehow missed them. And he binds himself face down, so he helps you build up that threshold. I'm also on 3 copies of Evoke Alchemist, which is the double rare from the debut set of Blangdmire, who, when he's boosting, if you have a Blangdmire Vanguard, he gets 5k, and when he's boosting a grade 3 or greater Blangdmire Vanguard, he gets an extra 2k, so he becomes a 15k booster for Blanged. And if your bind zone has 4 more face-down cards, for a single counterblast, you choose one of your front row rear guards and stand it. And if your bind zone has 8 or more, it gets an additional 15. So this is how you're going to be using Zamug as your main beater. Zamug is going to swing. He'll restand by the Evoke Alchemist, swing again, always putting crit pressure on. This deck is really good at applying pressure. And to round up the actual rear guards for grade 1s, I'm on 2 copies of Netherworld Butcher, the Blangdmire promo, who on place does the same thing as Ruxay for Varga. As long as you have a grade 3 Blangdmire Vanguard, your opponent can't intercept until end of turn. So this means that your opponent can't just intercept with their units to be able to recycle them from drop. They will be binding something for sure. He has another ability, though, that when he boosts, as long as you have a grade 3 or greater Blangdmire, you can choose a card from drop and toss it into soul. So lets you rebuild your soul too, gives you a little bit of extra numbers. Of course, 4 perfect cards. You can run Sanctitude. The reason I'm not in here is just because of number of copies. I don't own as many. I didn't want to move it around. You can totally run it. You're not really losing anything by not, in my opinion. Along with that, though, for the trigger lineup, I'm on 4 of the soul crit. It is the soul crit because sometimes in certain situations it does come up that you'll need that extra soul. And then 4 vanilla crits. I'm also on 3 copies of the 20k guard fronts. These could be the soul fronts if you're really having soul issues, but the soul crits on occasion are enough. You typically shouldn't see anything. And you can definitely do 7 and 4 just fine if you want the bigger defense. This is just my preference for this list because you already have pretty big swings and you're going to be putting as much as you can on making Blangdmire impossible to guard. Obviously, 4 heals. And for my overtrigger, I am on the Spiritual King of Ignition, Volnut, who, as his additional effect, chooses a standing rear guard, and it gets the ability to restand at the end of the battle attacked. But if you don't choose, you draw a card, choose a unit from hand, and call it. The reason I'm on Volnut is, again, Zamug. you want to be swinging with Zamug as much as possible. So giving Zamug an extra attack that has 100 million behind it, I'm sold. Other options though, I do really like Purple OT. If you know you're running Purple OT, you're trying to push for the really early Divine skill anyways. You can swing with your, you can use like single Shatter Colossus or anything you think will be removed or anything you're fine just going to drop. First, drive check, heal, call. It's pretty good. I don't like Merit Zomblia in this list because despite it being guaranteed draws and board wipe, you're going to be losing out on being able to fully remove some of your opponent's cards from the game by binding them face down, because most decks don't get to interact with that. And some of the other things that you could be running, there's also a double rare for Blangdmire that came out in the set that gets a bunch of skills, extra guard, resist, all kinds of things, extra power, if you have a certain amount of bound face down cards. The reason I'm not on it in here is space. I personally think having the order package is more important. So I'm on the order package, but there's definitely an argument to be made to playing that instead. You could also, this is going to sound counterintuitive, you could drop Zamug and single strike Shatter Colossus down to 3 copies apiece to make room for 2. I personally don't think you would ever need more than 2. You could maybe drop Vaderok to 3. There's a lot of mandatory cards for this deck. You do need to have Zamug for sure, at least at 3, preferably 4. You need Nexus for obvious reasons. Single strike Shatter Colossus helps you build up faster for your bind zone so that you have bigger column or bigger Blangdmire swings, harder guard. Evoke, you need 2 to 3. I like 3 to guarantee I'm seeing it. Netherworld Butcher is a flex spot. This is one of the biggest flex spots. You really don't need to be running it. I like the guard, the intercept restrict. Let's go into like the pros and cons of the deck though. It's got a lot of power behind it. It's really annoying thing to deal with. It makes really big columns, especially with the Vaderok being a 20, 30, 40, if it goes on long enough, 40k booster. Zamug, always having a guaranteed crit when he swings as long as you have the energy for it. Elaborated Wizard just gets you back your perfect card, so you have a good bit of survivability here. But sometimes it's not enough. One of the biggest cons of the deck is if you're whiffing on your ride line skills, and if you're whiffing on those ride line skills, you're only getting like 1 card at a time. You're not really gonna have the gas to go on beyond your second turn, your second grade 3 turn. You're gonna be kind of struggling to catch up. God, I was trying to combine keep up and catch up there. You're gonna be struggling a little bit to keep up if you're whiffing, and because of how much it is honestly dedicated to chance that you might just miss hits like that, you are kind of taking a risk. Speaking of that, Schemer, very important. Also non-bows when you are hitting those low soul games. Something to keep in mind. And again, the deck space is really tight. The only real flex spots are, in my opinion, Netherworld Butcher and the Order Package. That's 7 cards. That sounds like a lot. It's really not when you have when you have so many options. And again, I genuinely think these are actually mandatory. So the only real flex spots are these 2 Netherworld Butchers, in my opinion. But that's just me. If you guys like the video, you like the channel, you like me, go ahead, do all the YouTube stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Ciao.